Welcome to Staples.
Staples Guy, I've resolved to save my office money in 2017.
Well, during Staples' January printing event, you save big when you buy one HP ink and get the second 40% off.
Oh, that kind of savings will impress the boss. Maybe this year he'll stop calling me New Guy Nick.
Well, there are worse nicknames.
I've worked there 6 years, and my name's Doug.
Resolve to save during Staples' January printing event. Buy one HP ink and get the second 40% off. Staples, make more happen.
Ends 1/14/17. See store staples.com for details. Restrictions may apply.
I am Vampiro. Hey, what's up, players? This is Teddy Long. Hey, this is Nick Aldis, a.k.a. Magnus.
This is Michael Tarver, a.k.a. Monster Tarver.
This is Tito Santana. This is Donovan Dijak from Ring of Honor.
This is Eric Young.
This is Rich Bocchini. Hey, everybody, this is Anthony Corelli. You are listening to the one and only Main Event Magnus.
I'm mad right now because I had to stand for about 27 seconds last week when John Cena just had to interfere. John Cena, who could care less about me, just couldn't stand the fact that I beat him 2 weeks ago, John Cena.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah!
And now, coming live from blogtalkradio.com and presented by wrestling-news.net, it's Main Event Madness. Madness Unleashed. You can chat with us during the show using the hashtag MEM Live on Twitter or Facebook.com/Main Event Madness. And now, here are your hosts for tonight's show, John Curry, Mark Madison, and Mike Holland.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Main Event Madness Radio, October 6th edition of the broadcast. We are starting things off with audio, with connections. That's me knocking on wood because it feels like it's the first time in forever that we've opened up with no problems, aside from Mark being tardy. But he'll be joining us in a little bit. Joining me tonight until he gets here, well, not just until he gets here, but while we're waiting for him, is one of my co-hosts you guys can hear with me each and every week. He is a writer for TGRWrestling.net, Mr. Mike Holland. What's going on, pal?
I'm a happy man. The Eagles are undefeated, and we have a good card coming up on Sunday. So I'm happy.
It's looking, and I'll find out, I think, a little bit more tomorrow. It's looking like No Mercy is going to be the first pay-per-view I miss in like years. And of course, it's got to be.
That's a little scary
it's going to be a good one. It's just the way the schedule ended up working out because WWE 2K17 is coming out. I may or may not have taken a couple days off, or at least a day off for that. May or may not have. No self-incrimination going on here. At this point, I am. And if you guys follow us on Twitter or follow me on Twitter at John MEM Radio or like us on Facebook, cheap plugs here. But you'll have noticed that we've gone pink and green for October. It is Liver Cancer and Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So doing my part at this point, that's really the only reason I'm wearing my Jets hat, is because it's green. Because Jesus Christ, do they look bad? Nine interceptions in 2 games for Fitzpatrick, and this is a guy that everybody, all of us Jets fans, were clamoring and praying that would re-sign with us. Oh my God!
It is all about the quarterback.
On another note, something that is shockingly more depressing than that, but thoughts on everybody going out to anybody living in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina. Mike and I were just talking about this off the air before we went on live with Hurricane Matthew going through there. Anybody who didn't get out, prayers and thoughts to you guys. Hopefully, you guys make it through the storm okay. But I do have to bring up one thing, and this might get me a little bit of shit. This is something else that Mike and I were talking about just before we went on the air. Now, obviously, I don't have a degree, or I'd be on a radio station, in communications and broadcasting and broadcast journalism and what have you. I don't have a degree, so who is this jackass on a podcast to tell somebody what to do and what not to do? But I'm fairly confident when you're talking about a hurricane where the National Weather Service is saying that there's going to be massive loss of life. That tells you the severity of Hurricane Matthew. But this is Shepard Smith on Fox News, and I don't mean to laugh at this, but I mean, how do you listen to this with a straight face?
Daytona Beach, all the way up to Jacksonville. This moves 20 miles to the west, and you and everyone you know are dead. All of you, because you can't survive it.
You couldn't have thought of a better way to word it than that. I mean, I applaud him for trying to get and I really don't mean to laugh and like be an asshole, but I applaud him for trying to get like the severity and intensity of the storm, get the point across to get people to get the hell out of there. Because, you always got those people that, while there's evacuations, I'm staying.
Yeah.
So I applaud him for doing that part. But really?
Well, I mean, I would just say to you, John, when the National Guard shows up, it's the time to go. So
pretty much,
I echo your thoughts. Anybody that's within the scope of that storm, before, after, or what comes next, please, do the right thing, get to safety, make sure you take care of yourself. But I know we're going slightly far field from the wrestling piece, but I would say to you, like, this is part of the problem with the media right now. It's just when you get a story like this, there's only so much that you can say. I mean, I heard today, I was watching, I happen to be off from work today.
Those are beautiful days.
Watching, aren't they though? On occasion. And I'm watching TV, and of course you're inundated with it, and you expect that. And like I said, you need to get the news out there and all that. But they're talking to the people that are like going into the storm to provide, the latest from the eye of the hurricane. And you're just thinking to yourself, again, to your point, I applaud your daring do, and if anything comes of that helps somebody, then it's good. But you kind of say to yourself, like, I think we know what's going to happen here. We've seen the pictures from Haiti. It's not going to be good. So, get to safety, do the right thing, take care of those that you care about. And my brother is in Florida, in St. Augustine, actually, and fortunately evacuated, to a nearby home of a friend's relative, because he actually runs a business down there. So I can relate to it firsthand, but he's not going to fool around when they say, hey, you got to get out of here. So, but yeah, I mean, come on, really, that's your analysis? A little, like, no bedside manner was provided on that one.
You want a horrible joke of the day?
Go ahead.
Hurricane Matthew's so bad, I left Florida almost 2.5 months ago.
Well, that's true. You did. You were on the early version of that. So good call.
But yeah, nonetheless, thoughts and prayers out to anybody affected by the storm. And on that note, we have a pretty big show to get to tonight. We've got the landscape changing announcement the other day that's being apparently contested by some in TNA who are either in denial, or it's starting to come across like another one of those things where shit, they announced it before we wanted them to. So what are we talking about? We're going to get to that in just a minute. We're going to talk about who won the week between Raw and SmackDown. I think it's another easy week. I didn't watch Raw. I didn't see much of Raw. Although, Raw made history. So.
Yes, they did.
They're definitely trying to better their odds at winning. We've got No Mercy coming this Sunday live on the WWE Network for only $9.99. Cheap plug. And I'm not even getting any cutback from that. That's, you know what? I should stop plugging them. No Mercy. Go find it on pay-per-view for only $54.95. And Evan Ginzburg of Legends TV, which you guys can see each and every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, is on MadhouseTV.com. Is going to be making his triumphant return to Main Event Madness in about an hour and a half from now. So that should be fun. And speaking of making his return, is somebody who likes to show up tardy. He's lucky he's buying me. Listen to the wind in the background, and it's wrong co-host. That one's already bunkering down in like some cement bunker, and he's not even a co-host anymore. It just sounded like wind in the background, Mark, and I'm like, you're about as far away from Hurricane Matthew as literally possible.
Well, that's what happens when the AC is blowing in your car. I guess it's symptomatic.
AC?
Yeah, I just came out of a building that was, I think I could have fried an egg on my head. It was that hot. So.
Wait, are you bald like I am?
No. Wait a minute. What it is Marcus. Remember, as we know from last week, he's another year older, and it might be male menopause.
Menopause. That's right. A happy belated birthday to Mr. Mark Madison. The now 40-year-old Mark Madison. 40. Good lordy, he's 40. So.
Weekend. Not that I can remember, but they were good.
Hey, there you go. That's all that matters. It means you got into shenanigans and you can't attest to them because you can't remember them.
I just, I didn't wake up in Vegas sunburned or on the roof of a building. Oh, sorry, that was but things happen, and what I can remember, a lot of laughing.
That's a good thing.
Somewhere in Canada, after Mark's raucous birthday celebration, there's a moose with no pants. So I don't know.
That sounds horrifying.
Canadian, really, the national pastime isn't throwing cans of beer off the second deck of any stadium during baseball games, but it seems like that has become a focal point of our fine nation. So.
Yeah, you got to be a little bit excited with the American League Division Series going the way it's starting to.
Yeah.
The one team that I wanted, because the Yankees suck so bad they couldn't even make it to the damn wild card game. Although at least they were nice enough that they lost 7 games at the beginning of September, so we didn't have to worry about it. We didn't have to worry about it.
Be said for that.
Well, it's got to be frustrating, though, too, because I don't care if the Yankees are in 4th or 5th. To me, they're always a threat, even to scare you, too, and come close. And, who would I rather face between Baltimore and New York? I think I really would have wanted to face for one game with a team that's had as much history as they have, New York. I don't know.
Yes, you would have. That went great for Houston last year. Yes, you would have. If we had Mariano Rivera, no, you wouldn't.
Listen, John, you're just going to have to enjoy rebuilding as my hometown Phillies are. So
your Phillies have rebuilt for like 100 years.
That is not true.
Okay, they won once in the 80s and they won once in 08.
They actually won more recently than that. But
they didn't win the World Series since.
They are the losingest franchise in the history of I think pro sports, certainly baseball.
Yeah, the first.
Philadelphia is Philadelphia because we're always pissed about how we've lost for hundreds of years. So when we win, it's enjoyable. I did already mention once on the show. I'm just going to say it again while I can. Undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. Just one more time when to get to that.
I used to be in when I was younger, like the Randall Cunningham days. But
Yeah.
yeah, see?
That's right, Mark. You can get
maybe.
you can get back into it. It's okay. We'll still accept you on the Wentz wagon.
Nice.
All right, so we have a lot to get. We were just running down topics because we were making fun of Shepard Smith on Fox News. In case you're wondering what we're talking about, so Hurricane Matthew going on right now, and I had mentioned, and I preface this by saying I don't have a degree in any way, shape, or form in any kind of media or anything, but I'm fairly confident you're not supposed to talk to people about a hurricane like this.
Daytona Beach, all the way up to Jacksonville. This moves 20 miles to the west, and you and everyone you know are dead.
Were you able to hear that?
Oh, try and do it one more time because I was frightened with what I think I heard.
To the west, and you and everyone you know are dead.
Did you just say people in the west, they're dead?
No, hold on.
All the way up to Jacksonville. This moves 20 miles to the west, and you and everyone you know are dead.
Oh my God!
Yeah, so if it moved 20 miles to the west, he said you and everyone you know are in love are dead.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we were laughing about. That's what we were laughing about. So, and speaking of things to laugh about, Dixie Carter.
I thought you were going to say, speaking of natural disasters.
That would be too. So unless you guys have been living under a rock, TNA is bankrupt. Like, they're like 23-year-old, fresh out of college with a master's. Yeah, if you're 23 with a master's, God bless you. But you get where I'm going with that. And you have literally ramen noodles in your cupboard. That's how broke they are. They're so broke, their house is made out of cardboard. And I'm talking about the Impact Zone, which is really sucky considering Hurricane Matthew. Either way, the point is, TNA is broke. So this isn't the bash TNA. This is the bash Dixie Carter. This bitch holds a meeting with the Impact roster. And, everything's fine. I don't understand why so many people are surprised. And then 2 days later, WWE buys the TNA library, TNA to close up and be rebranded in 2017. You lying bitch. Like, you couldn't even tell the people that have been sacrificing and not even being paid on time, if at all, because I'm sure there's some of them who haven't been paid yet. You can't even look the men and women that are carrying your company in the eye and say, yeah, we're broke. This is the deal. We're hoping to get something done. No. You lie to them?
See, when Paul Heyman was running those scenarios, it was pretty transparent. People knew that checks were made of rubber at that point and that they couldn't stay afloat and things were behind. But I don't think he necessarily hid that fact, though, did he? I guess because he had like Tommy Dreamer that was also looking into things, and
yeah.
But in comparison, nobody is coming to say anything contrary to that because Bob Ryder tweeted out, quotating. I think I might have quoted the tweet. These sources. And puts it in a parentheses that they're not reliable, and I wouldn't give them much. Essentially, they don't hold much water. So we could understand why would you want to admit yes, the end is here if it's still in discussion or negotiation. Well, because you're employing a whole lot of people, and that's. Nobody wants to go to work to find out that the doors have been boarded up, right? So I get why they probably wouldn't want to. Is it insulting? Oh, no doubt. I feel for the Cody Rhodes and the Aaron Rexes and the guys that really we're going, and Drew Galloway, kind of can tell where I'm going with this. Guys that are getting that opportunity to flourish because they weren't getting that chance before are stumbling now because what they had banked, pardon the pun, on being an opportunity may just not be that. But that said, they had to have known that things weren't completely secure.
It just sucks that these guys are looking for an alternative. It sucks to not be WCW or have a WCW around, or conversely, a WWF to a WCW. How they had it back in the 90s, where Hogan was fed up with WWF. He went to WCW. X-Pac, among many others. Big Show retired to WCW. Jericho, they went to the WWF. They don't have that really luxury unless they want to go to New Japan. But it's so, I think New Japan's probably, and I would imagine so, selective of who they want to sign. It sucks, but I can. The only semblance of that I could relate to is going on vacation and finding out the moment you get to your hotel room that the company you work for is going out of business.
Yeah.
Because I found that out when I went to Orlando. I just get to the room and I'm checking on my phone. I check into the hotel. Breaking news: Sports Authority to close all stores.
Yeah,
that's what I want to see on vacation.
Never want to find out that way. Of course. And I think you guys are right on with this. I would just add a couple of points. The first one is to Mark's thing. Again, not that I know it as fact, but I spent some time with, ECW and went to many a show there. Paul Heyman had a circle of friends, many of which were wrestlers, and those guys did jobs for him, that normally you wouldn't do in WWE. You're not going to have one of the wrestlers in charge of merchandise. It was a different feel. And so you're absolutely right, Mark. I mean, I guess that this Tommy Dreamer were literally not taking money because they loved the business and they loved the promotion and they loved the guy that was running it. And to say that that's the opposite of what's going on now, I just think, again, no offense, John put it the way he put it, and I don't dispute it. Dixie is a disaster, and she's not a wrestling person. She's some other, entertainment type of person. And it's the same sort of situation that Ted Turner found himself in when he tried to get into the wrestling business, where you need to have people that know the business because they do care. This is livelihood, and this is people that, take it personally. And as well they should. And the only other thing I would point out, speaking of Aaron Rex especially, is look, let's face it. Again, no offense to TNA, not trying to kick them while they're down, but they're still not doing their talent any favors. Aaron Rex's match, that thing was a disaster. And again, it's this overbooked kind of, we're going to do something different. Like, let guys, when he came out and did his first promo, it was gold and it looked great. And this is the problem with TNA. They have these collections of people with power. You have the guys that are still loyal to WWE, like Gabrick, who want to get the money in there and sell out the tape library, and understandably. But as a wrestling fan, when I saw that news, and John actually had sent it to me because I was working that day, so I did not get the breaking news that's contested still to this point. But my first reaction was not positive. I mean, not as far as the rebranding. I think we would all love to see Dixie take her money and go. But in terms of WWE buying TNA's tape library and that being a huge win for wrestling, that's a little more debatable because, to your point, there is no huge competition right now. And this is what WWE likes to do. They like to just basically put their footprint, stomp out the competition, which is understandable. But as wrestling fans, we want, as you've brought up many times, Mark, we want some differences. And there are other options out there. Ring of Honor is out there. Lucha Underground is out there. New Japan, as you said, is out there. But at the end of the day, to me, the only way this ends well is for Dixie to go find something else to do, because she has done a singularly horrible job at running that promotion into the ground. And that's the truth.
Sorry, go ahead, John. Sorry.
No, you're good. I'll say it after.
So it's interesting when it comes to, we talked about opportunity, but when it pertains to the guys about, we thought there would be something more for them. I've got to wonder if the WWE's motivation when it came to buying this library, or the speculation, because nobody, if it's not coming out verbatim, unfortunately, all we can do is speculate. But unless the WWE, their rationale, I would think, for wanting not necessarily buy Inc., I think, and close them out. I think if the incentive was to get the library, you're getting the whole back catalog on guys like Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, which is imperative because you can't just break the last 14 years or some on years for a guy like Samoa Joe or AJ Styles. He competed somewhere. So that, I think it was more the catalog. That was their incentive. I don't think they really cared otherwise, because the TNA actually has a bit of a niche market, I think. Aaron Ramadoff, a friend of the show, part of PWP Nation, they're very big on some of the production and some of the storylines that have come along. To their credit, they're looking at what they can appreciate. I don't think the WWE cared for one way or another try to buy out any company. That's my opinion. Unless there's an incentive and they want a very specific facet. Because if what we talked about, John, you had mentioned all contracts are supposed to be null and void as of January 1st.
Yeah, from what Wayne told me, that the way he understood it was Billy Corgan is now the majority owner of Impact. I'm assuming of Impact Ventures, which is the company that owns Impact Wrestling. WWE is now the sole owner of the tape library, and that Billy Corgan will rebrand, and this all takes effect January 1st, 2017. And apparently, like you had just asked me, the way Wayne explained it was that all contracts are null and void as of January 1st, which is a good thing and a bad thing, because me personally, and I didn't mean to cut you off, Mark, me personally, I'm excited to see what a determined and energetic Billy Corgan, with whoever he has with him or may have with him when he goes to rebrand Impact Wrestling. I'm kind of excited to see what they can do. To not have the name Dixie Carter and that stigma and asterisk attached to it is already, honestly, more exciting than anything Monday Night Raw's put out. I can't tell you how long. Diversity could be coming.
Sorry?
I said diversity could be coming. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's important, right? And that's what we all want, is a diversity. But by nulling and voiding all those contracts, do they really want the talent that comes tied to it, like when it was the WCW purchase, with the contracts that there was 25 contracts that were tied to that, right? So they were motivated by one very specific facet, and I think that was their driving to pick up what they picked up. Everything else, can go by the wayside.
Well,
sure,
and also,
right?
What's up?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the differences is, like you were talking about, Mark, it's a business decision. They want the tape library. There's no doubt. He's a grudge kind of a guy. It's not to say he won't get over it, but it does put some people in some awkward situations, because obviously it's sort of ironic. It's like you left WWE because they weren't pushing you, they weren't using you correctly, which makes total sense. And we've on this show many times agreed with those guys in those decisions. And now, in a way, it's tough because Corgan is definitely more of a wrestling guy. He's been around the business. He's had his fingers in promotions before. I'm sure that he's going to continue to surround himself with people who know the business even better than he does, I would think, based on what we've seen so far. But it's tough because it's like you said, as a rebranding promotion, they have to find their market, which is what ECW did so successfully. They provided something that really nobody else was doing, certainly on a televised scale, and it was niche, 100%. And it was so niche and it was so explosive that it got to the point the big promotions were mirroring what they were doing, which I think, listen, we've seen examples of WWE doing that with TNA. Most recently, badly with the Wyatt family, trying to copy off of what the Hardys are doing, which is so original that really can't be copied. So, I just think the whole thing's kind of funny. It's like WWE pretended for the longest time that TNA didn't exist and we don't want to reference them. And now they're buying the tape library, in essence, to reference what happened before with these guys that are, even bigger stars for them now. So the whole thing is kind of tough, but I think you guys are right. Like, we're just hopeful that some of the very deserving men and women that are on that roster, that are working there for a living and doing their best to entertain us as fans, come out of this in, if not a better financial situation, at least one where they can go to work every day and feel like they're making progress and, getting to a point where, if not competition for WWE as the be all and end all, but they're putting out a product that people are responding to. And you'll see those attendance numbers, start to increase as people get excited that this is viable. Right now, I just think a lot of people are like, I'm not even going to bother tuning in because it's kind of a joke.
And I think the only reason they did the women's main event was to try to get, I'm at least talking about Monday Night Raw, is to try to reestablish that, anything can happen on Monday Night Raw. It's not always going to be the same old, same old. This is what happens. You should have tuned in. And then they get you, and oh, look at this. It's the same shit we've seen for the last 3 weeks. Oh, look at that. Roman Reigns and Rusev open the show, and then they close it. Awesome. Totally want to see this feud 753 times over the course of 3 hours.
Well, at least they stopped Sheamus. Funny, but the funny part is when you look at guys facing each other forever, the Sheamus Cesaro one,
yeah,
worst friends. I'm sure how the saying goes. Good friends, better enemies, or something like that. But they're being aligned. You're gonna have this squabbling, so that they can't really punch the crap out of each other. So they're forced to work together because they're so valuable. Okay.
I have one thing to say to that. I have not, in any way, shape, or form, I have not warmed up to the culmination of the Best of 7 series. I have not warmed up to that at all. Matter of fact, I was actually very happy I didn't get to see Monday Night Raw. I was very happy. I want to go back, and I'm going to go back and watch the women's title match that main evented it.
I was gonna say, if you, and I agree. I mean, largely, other than that, it wasn't that it was a great show, but that match you definitely need to see because it was not their best match, but it was their best match in the WWE. I mean, they've had better matches in NXT, but I think that was their best match including pay-per-view. They both did a phenomenal job. So you do have to check that out. But to Mark's point about Sheamus and Cesaro, by the way, the whole thing is just hilarious to me because I truly feel, and I know I've gone on record as critiquing the WWE for doing stuff out of spite. I really feel like you could smell how this was going to go a mile away. Everybody knew before it started that Cesaro was going to go down, by 3 and then come back and ultimately win.
Once you saw Sheamus go up 2-0, or even the first win, you could even. I think we even said that on the show.
We did. And the thing is, I truly feel like that's how they had. Everybody loves Cesaro. So how can we not give them what they want, but still kind of give them what they want? And I'm going to maintain this. Again, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but I really feel like this is the downfall of the WWE, is that they listen to the fans and they do have to do what people want, but they're not going to give it to you the way that you want because that's just a little too much. So they come up with this convoluted thing where Sheamus and Cesaro are now going to be the funny odd couple, and they're wrestling jobbers. To Mark's point, that's my favorite part of the whole thing. So Mick Foley's like, you guys I know you can do it. You could be a great tag team. And we're all like, we knew that already. Cesaro's great. He could do anything. He's already been in a great tag team, by the way. So it's not like this is a shock. And then you prove it by having them wrestle no names 2 weeks in a row. So it just, that is exactly what is wrong right now with the WWE product, is they sort of want to give you what you're asking for, but they don't want to do it in the way that you asked for it. So they just kind of have it both ways. It's very frustrating.
So at this point, I think what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick timeout. How the hell do you watch something on Twitter? They put NFL games? Wow, I feel like I'm living. Oh, yeah. I remember them saying that. Sorry, I just got a big push notification that you could watch Thursday Night Football on Twitter, which is weird. But I forgot that they were doing games on there this year. We're going to take a quick timeout, guys. And when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation about Monday Night Raw, unfortunately, and SmackDown Live, which actually was pretty good. I was watching it while I was getting ready for the show tonight. It was actually pretty good. I say actually, and it's been good like every week. The crowd's been on fire. It's like night and day between Raw and SmackDown, which is funny because I was pulling for Raw to be the better show, but be that as it may, we're going to talk about Raw and SmackDown and who won the week. I think you already know where we're going with this. And then we're going to run down No Mercy. And we have Evan Ginzburg coming up in about an hour from now. He wants to give his take on the situation with Impact Wrestling. So you guys aren't going to want to miss that. Evan Ginzburg, his first appearance on the show in about a month, I think, right?
Yeah.
So don't go anywhere, guy.
What's going on?
What's that?
Doing scheduling and just things going on, yeah.
Be fun. Yeah, it'll be good to have him back. So we are live, wrestling-news.net, blogtalkradio.com/main event madness, at John MEM Radio, live tweeting during the show, at the Mark Madison, at Darman Rockwell, facebook.com/main event madness if you guys want to chat with us, or hashtag MEM Live on Twitter. And as I mentioned, who won the week between Raw and SmackDown? No Mercy. Some news about Bill Goldberg, and maybe some news about Alberto Del Rio, or I'm sorry, Alberto El Patron. Oh, look at my Spanish accent. I'm so proud of myself. And that, I think, is going to be our a segment we haven't done in a long time. What were they thinking? We haven't done that one in quite a while. And oh, do they deserve it? What are we talking about? You guys are going to have to stick around later in the broadcast to find out. And on that note, we will be back right after these words. All right, so you want to know what's going on with the show, and you want to know who our next guest is going to be. Well, the easiest place to do that is Facebook. Facebook.com/Main Event Madness is the official Facebook page for Main Event Madness Radio. Come check us out and give us a like and help spread the word and make this a movement. Facebook.com/Main Event Madness. Looking for wrestling news, missed a live event, and want the best results? Well, look no further. Wrestling-news.net is the place to go for all of the pro wrestling news and results your heart desires, with coverage of the WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, TNA, Ring of Honor, Global Force Wrestling, Independence, and more. Also, is your favorite promotion overseas? No problem either. Wayne Daly has results and news for promotions all over the world. Check them out today, wrestling-news.net. Visit pwpnation.com for exclusive wrestling articles you won't find anywhere else. Since 2012, Pro Wrestling Powerhouse has produced original content from a dedicated team of wrestling analysts and fans from across the globe. pwpnation.com has now expanded into the world of wrestling news, podcasts, videos, and so much more. Make sure to visit pwpnation.com today. From the associate producer of The Wrestler, and in the tradition of Joe Franklin and Ed Sullivan variety talk shows, Evan Ginzburg's Legends TV features an eclectic mix of legendary million-selling musicians, indie artists deserving greater exposure, and colorful pro wrestlers. Co-hosted by Steve Ludwig of Classic Pop Culture Radio, the show airs live every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern at MadhouseTV.com and LegendsTVNYC.com. Martha Wash, Crown Heights Affair, Lanny Poffo, Nicole Bass, and other legends have joined us. You missed the birth of your mother and father. Don't you dare miss Evan Ginzburg's Legends TV. Coming soon, a website with news, a website with columns, a website with madness.
MainEventMadness.com is returning soon with a new look, a new attitude, and we're raising the game to a whole new level. Don't miss new columns, our entire Main Event Madness archive featuring legendary guests, wrestling news, a chat you can use with us during the show, a store, and more. Don't miss the new MainEventMadness.com, coming soon. From the ashes of our old website comes a fresh new face from Main Event Madness. MEM Network is here. Check out all of your favorite episodes of Main Event Madness, Work in Progress, Wrestling's Rope Break, and Evan Ginzburg's Legends TV. More shows to be announced in the future, but check out memnetwork.wix.com/home, where the madness runs wild.
Greg DeMarco presents Pro Wrestling Biz, the internet's premier host of analysis, opinion, and wrestling columns. Whether it's covering World Wrestling Entertainment, Lucha Underground, Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, or any other independent wrestling promotion, Pro Wrestling Biz has you covered. With daily news, show reviews, covering pay-per-views or iPay-per-views, Pro Wrestling Biz will offer viewers an array of opinions from some of the most knowledgeable wrestling writers on the internet.
All right, folks, we are back. Main Event Madness Radio, October 6th edition of the broadcast. We thank you guys for taking time out of your night to come hang out with us, or morning, wherever you are. We really appreciate you guys coming to check out what we got to say here and our opinions, and hopefully you guys like what you're listening to. You guys come on back every week with us. Right now, you guys are listening to Shallow Side and their single Rebel. Their music is available on iTunes and Spotify, and you guys can follow them on Twitter and like them on Facebook. Both are at Shallow Side Band. Again, this is their single Rebel. And if you guys like the tune, call into your local radio stations and get the music on there. They're trying their best to get their new single out there. It's a great song. iTunes and Spotify. That's Shallow Side Band on Twitter and Facebook. And as we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, thoughts and prayers out to anybody in Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, being affected, as well as Haiti and Cuba, who were affected by Hurricane Matthew. Ridiculously strong storm. Like they were saying, it was going to stay maybe as a Category 3 yesterday morning when I was watching this. It was like 120 miles an hour winds, and it bumped right back up to Category 4, 140 mile per hour winds in the storm, which I guess I probably wouldn't be too far out of the ballpark if I say that could relocate your house fairly efficiently. Definitely your car. You probably won't have a car again. Sorry, I'm starting to go down the Shepard Smith path here. But we got like I said, thoughts and prayers out to them. We got a lot still to come here on Main Event Madness Radio. We were talking Raw and SmackDown Live this week just before the commercial break. Now, I just want to get you guys' honest opinion. Do you remember, like, even probably closer to 10 years ago now, you used to get excited for Monday Night Raw. You used to get excited for Mondays. You know, obviously the Attitude Era, that's a given. But, you know, like the first brand split and coming into now, you used to really get excited for it. You guys get excited for Monday Night Raw, or is it kind of like me if I'm home on Monday, be like, oh, it's Monday. Ah, shit. Well, trying to see the latest evolution of the Authority, week 714. A champion won't surpass Bruno Sammartino, but the fucking Authority will. Sorry.
I I would say for my part, I think that there's some truth to that about Monday. Certainly Raw being less exciting, but I actually think part of it is just with this brand split, which was certainly partially done for the television purposes and guys having to travel less, and that's, understandable. And I think, whenever you have that conversation about wrestling needing to have a union and some of the stuff, you start to get that the schedule's tough. They have a lot of travel to do. And, if you have to do 2 shows in the same week on 2 different nights, plus a pay-per-view potentially that weekend, plus the house shows, it's a lot. But the downside is it's a lot of wrestling in a short amount of time, particularly like on these weeks like this one, where you have a pay-per-view on, Sunday, then you have Raw, and then you have SmackDown the next 2 nights. It's just a lot of product in a very short amount of time. And so, look, the 3 of us love wrestling, so we're not going to complain about too much wrestling. But this is part of my big argument about the whole idea of the brand split is that things have to be different. If Raw and SmackDown feel exactly the same, and you just watched one of them do a pay-per-view, then really even the company is telling you that the only thing you should get excited for are the 4 big events. That, when all the guys are together, that's what you're supposed to really get pumped for. And week to week, it's kind of like you said. It's like, well, I could watch it, I could not watch it. Not much is really going to happen that's that noteworthy. And I think that's been a challenge for them just overall in terms of presenting it in the way that they're choosing to do it.
I'm going to argue your point on one condition. If it's too much wrestling at the caliber of Monday Night Raw, I probably would bitch a little bit. Because that means you got the bullshit Stephanie McMahon and Mick Foley. I love me some Mick Foley. Like, the weeks that Stephanie are not there and it's just Mick Foley are good. The weeks that Stephanie's there and she's got like super duper hyper bipolar because one minute she wants to be this evil vindictive bitch and the next minute she wants to be everybody's friend, and it's like, just no.
Well, no, I agree. I'm just saying to you that I think the content in general is tough to pull that off, even if you're firing on all cylinders.
That's true.
When you're not, it sticks out even worse.
This is true. Your thoughts, Mark?
Sometimes oversaturation with anything. What's the most important thing? I think I think Mike really kind of took the words out of my mouth. I think I'm excited at the prospect of what's going to happen with No Mercy. Roughly at the pay-per-view, I wouldn't have really cared about other words. Do I think Dolph Ziggler is going to lose? I don't think anybody thinks that. But the fact that the way they've tried to build it so that this mid-card feud isn't just, it's Miz and Ziggler again. To their credit, I'm going to give that some sort of kudos. The fact of a triple threat match and the animosity, maybe we're getting a whole different side of John Cena. Looking forward to that. But I don't know if on the Raw side of things are built up in this passion. I'm kind of concerned about the cruiserweights. Maybe it's too early. If I'm looking at comparison,
It has seemed like they floundered a little bit.
Yeah, like.
And I'm not even saying that to insult them.
No, but I think with any of those guys, you can only push their skill alone on that particular show. It just without developing character, which is why I think you're kind of getting a heel sense from Tony D. You definitely have that with Brian Kendrick, but they need to. I think they still want to try to define their good guys and their bad guys, but it's not all balls out to the wall like we saw in the Cruiserweight Classic. So there's going to be a bit of a letdown, especially since that was just straight ahead, straight mouth, 100%, balls to the wall, and in comparison, they maybe don't want that. So they're really aiming that. And I don't think I think it's a different market. I don't really think
I think
the fans that were, I don't know. Am I wrong in thinking Cruiserweight Classic seemed like it was for fans that wanted?
it was for the hardcore wrestling fan. That's what the CWC to me was. It was to the person that, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, but to the people similar like Evan's mindset, where they don't want the sports entertainment shit.
Right.
They want wrestling. So
the thing is, if you're gonna, you need to represent all of that. In my opinion, wrestling has always been about a combination of those things, right? You look at wrestling throughout its history. It used to be, it arose from guys just really grappling with each other for an hour. And I don't know that anybody in today's day and age would be like, boy, I can't wait to see George Hackenschmidt, put resting holds on somebody for an hour and a half at a carnival. But the point is, it was wrestling, and that part of the business still needs to be maintained. And I think that's where, certain companies, Lucha Underground being a great example, give you the wrestling, but it's really more about the other stuff. And you can get too far either way. But I agree with, Mark, completely on the cruiserweights that my thing is when they debuted on Raw, it was totally wrong. They just did it totally wrong. They build it up, and WWE, while I'm ranting about them, this is another thing that they keep doing. And the most recent example, believe it or not, is the Kurt Hawkins thing. They keep telling you, oh, this is going to happen. Cruiserweights are coming. That's really exciting. You should be excited. It's only 3 weeks away. Now it's 2 weeks away. Then they show up, and it just feels like a regular match. There's no build. There's no character development. The champion who just won the belt isn't even in the building. Like, this is the wrong way to get people excited. And like you said, John, they also have that bridge where, because you watch the CWC, doesn't mean that you're the ones going to Monday Night Raw.
No, that's the kids that are gonna, and I don't mean to cut you off, the kids that are, I want to go see John Cena. John Cena's there. Yeah, I want to go see Roman Reigns or Finn Balor, and Finn Balor's not there. And then, they're not doing anything. It's like comparing the NXT arena to the Impact Zone. CWC to Monday Night Raw. It's the Monday Night Raw fans, a lot of them, their parents, the kids are watching. A lot of the parents are only there to take their kids. It's the same thing as the Impact Zone had. There's so many people that just didn't care and don't care.
Absolutely. No, and that's true. And you can't appeal to everyone no matter how hard you try. So you have to have different segments in the show. But I would say to you guys, and I'd be curious to know your thoughts. I think that when WCW, and Eric Bischoff gets credit for it to some degree, and rightly so, and gives himself even more credit, and we can judge that or not. But when WCW really struck gold with the cruisers, it was because they stopped treating them like cruiserweights. They just stopped. Instead of saying, oh, it's the opener of the match, and we're going to have Brian Pillman fight, Jushin Liger, and then we're going to do the real wrestling later with the big guys, because that's how they started. Let's get real. Eric wants to say, hey, I transformed wrestling and all this stuff, and that's fine. But the truth is, they put on a good show, and people wanted to see more of it. And in many cases, like Brian Pillman, these were guys that were already established. So I would offer to you guys, again, not really hard. If you want to get people excited and invested in cruiserweight, how about use your guys on your roster that were already there, like Neville, who can't even make the show.
Sami Zayn.
Not even on the show. And you could very easily put him right into a series with Perkins, with Kendrick, with whoever you want, and that is money. There's nobody that's, and they already know Neville, so they're going to be like, wow, we're really excited to watch Neville wrestle this other guy. Wow, this other guy's doing a great job. I want to see more of him. But I feel like it's built wrong. I think this whole thing of we're going to call them cruiserweights and they're going to be separate and they're going to wrestle each other 50 times. It's going to take more than flashy moves to get people invested in your character. So in my mind, and again, I agree, the jury is out. I really don't want to poo-poo this because I'm very excited to see a lot of these guys wrestle. And I think even live, it's probably even better than what it's showing on TV with the capability that they have. But I really think that's been the miss. Like, where is Neville? Where is Kalisto? He's not even on.
Sami Zayn.
Like, these are guys. Yeah, exactly. These are guys that would get you that energy that you're talking about, John, where the regular fans, if you want to call them that, know these guys. And that's how you get the new guys over. And I just so far have not seen evidence of that. I think it is a big miss.
Yeah, we'll get back to this in a minute. I do want to give Mark a chance to head up Schiller's Corner this week. Schilling Corner.
Not a lot going on with me. But when it comes to writing, I did release past week for Daily DDT a 5 biggest moments in wrestling for the month of September. A lot of them were tied to WWE. I did have something tied to UFC, and again, there was a TNA related item as well. So a lot more shorter blogs are coming out with that I'd be coming up with. I will have a couple of pieces making my return to the richest and having a couple pieces available for them. I was just talking to John, something else may have come up. I don't know. It's really a timing issue. It's good to be busy and it's good to be wanted. I tell you, it's a very different feeling that I had than, say, 3 months ago. I tell you, my friend, it's a really strange world we live in. And when opportunity knocks, I guess jump on it. Unfortunately, I haven't had anything that I would have liked to put out on TGR Wrestling. But that's not to say that I don't love and care for TGR and John Canton. But I just haven't had anything, needless to say, even time to put out. There was an item that I do kind of have lingering that I may just as well toss in there. But, it's not just me. It is we. And the other side of me would be Mike, who does throw down weekly on TGR Wrestling. So I'm going to gently pass the baton to, or touch to the right-hand side, whichever works better. Michael, to it.
I appreciate that, sir. The feeling is mutual. I do have it actually because we've been talking about it. It just went up today. The latest brand split. See, now I'm doing the John thing. The latest brand split breakdown is up. Just went up a couple hours. Maybe shocking to both of you to learn that I did actually pick Raw as the better show this week. So spoiler alert, I guess it's too late, but you definitely will get opinion on that and how things are going. And it was certainly on the strength of the finals match. And then we also will be having, my understanding is tomorrow at some point, either in the morning or the afternoon, depending on when John puts it up, the preview column for No Mercy, which, speaking of all the wrestling, there's been a lot more of those to write, and they're always fun to do and predict and say what we think is going to happen. Actually did pretty well last time around. Normally I am way off, but hopefully, again, it's all about the entertainment factor, and hopefully people, appreciate that. So I've got that up today. That will be up tomorrow. So that's quite a bit of me, and that will probably carry everyone over until next week with my opinion level. But that's appreciated, Mark. Thank you. We miss you over there. Ben, put something out so I can pass the baton back to you, my Canadian consulate.
Well, what we need to be doing is putting together Mike and Mark's strange wrestling thing, because it was really popular. I don't know. And that's just, we throw out the ideas, and I think one of us drafted something. I'm not even sure if it was you or me or whatever. And the other one, I'll get to it. And life happens. And I totally get it. I really think we're going to have to put pen to paper. Steve Mello, or Mellow Man, who I think might have even helped our John, along with our John here, helping, it sounds like a prostitute, but anyways, helping us out with graphic. And he's going to be making us a banner. So it's pretty neat to see that we could actually have something fun out there, and we just got to flush those ideas out. We're just thinking and talking out loud. And make it happen, Mike. Make it happen.
We're gonna it'll be the North American connection. We'll have the U.S. and Canada represented in lively banterous manner.
Well, as opposed to Can-Am connection, where somebody leaves the company and the other one complains that they were stiffed on money.
Oh, wait a minute. Story, you may have given a.
That's what happened with Tom Zink and Rick Martin.
I'm not going to listen to this part of the conversation.
No, listen, that's true. And in fact, Mark might be giving away a future, main event in a spotlight. No, never know. You have to tune in every week to find out. That could absolutely happen. I will not be paid in loony. No.
On that note, who won the week before Mark leaves us? I vote SmackDown. Mark?
I didn't see SmackDown. I can't fairly vote, so I'm kind of disqualified from throwing it down.
And on that note, we'll have the results for you in a little bit because we will throw it to a Twitter poll. So
the Twitter poll will be the tiebreaker.
This is so weird. I'm typing up the Twitter poll, and on the side of it, they have a little box, live video, NFL Thursday Night Football. This is so weird, seeing it on Twitter.
Tune in and watch Chip Kelly lose and laugh like I do.
I don't care about really many of the games. I'm out of my $4,000 pool. The only thing I'm caring about now is my fantasy team. My quest to become 4-0, 5-0.
Wow, impressive!
I know my buddy's got a fantasy football wrestling belt for the winner of the league, so I'm hoping I win that.
On the contrary side, on the flip side of that, my fantasy football experience this year has been drafting Adrian Peterson and Des Bryant. So you can imagine how well I've been doing. Plus, I have a Cowboy on my team, which is brutal. That's a fake word.
My Cowboys, or not Cowboy, I'm sorry. My quarterback is Tom Brady, so I feel your pain. But, Mark, have a good night, sir.
You too, guys. And carry on. Please tell Evan I said hi, and please tell them my best.
Will do.
Take care, Mark.
So we will defer to the Twitter poll. Hopefully I have results for you guys before we go off the air tonight. On this note, we are going to hit a brief commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk No Mercy, Goldberg, and what were they thinking? Potentially, what were they thinking? We got a little bit more on an incident with Alberto Del Patron, whatever name he's going by. But we'll be back in just 30 seconds. Brief commercial right here, Main Event Madness Radio. Do not go anywhere. Looking for wrestling news? Missed a live event and want the best results? Well, look no further. Wrestling-news.net is the place to go for all of the pro wrestling news and results your heart desires, with coverage of the WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, TNA, Ring of Honor, Global Force Wrestling, Independence, and more. Also, is your favorite promotion overseas? No problem either. Wayne Daly has results and news for promotions all over the world. Check them out today, wrestling-news.net. All right, guys, we are back. Main Event Madness Radio. That is Shallow Side, their single Rebel. You guys can check it out on iTunes and Spotify, as well as at Shallow Side Band on Twitter and Facebook.com/Shallow Side Band. If you guys like the tune, again, that's Rebel by Shallow Side. Call your local radio stations, get the song on the air, help get the word out, and just support a good band. So the Twitter poll is out there at John MEM Radio. Vote now if you want to make your voice heard and be the one to decide the rubber make or be the rubber maker, I guess, or the rubber match. I don't know what you would call that.
You don't want to say rubber maker.
Well, we have Mr. Inappropriate Innuendo here tonight.
Be the rubber maker.
All right, I'll give it to myself. All right, hold on. I'll give it to myself.
Do it.
There you go. Did you hear it?
I got it. Well put. Well put.
Anyway, I want to touch on this one. A possible what were they thinking? So if you guys have not seen this, Alberto Del Rio was attacked, apparently stabbed. Now, he was interviewed, and apparently he said it was a homeless man attacked him and Paige. And contrary to that, there are some people going around that believe the injuries were sustained as a result of an argument with Paige. Any thoughts?
I mean, like, first of all, what is going on with wrestlers getting stabbed and attacked?
Right.
Noble had, right? Like, so
He had some gnarly some gnarly scars on him.
And that story is bizarre as well in terms of, what went on and all the background with that. Now, obviously, both of them are serious situations. It looks like, if basically anywhere you get knifed is not good, but there's plenty of places where you're talking about some very serious consequences. So I don't know what is going on with Alberto and Paige. I mean, it's just been like one disaster after another, and that him missing that appearance, they kind of had to walk that back because of his story. So that kind of enters into it too. I mean, I don't want to question his story because I don't know what happened or what didn't. Obviously, if somebody attacked him, then they deserve to, be punished accordingly. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm not one to dig into relationships on this show. That we'll save that for Loveline. But this does not appear to be a relationship that is going to end in a happy marriage. I'm just going to put it that way. So, you might just want to say, hey, let's agree to our mutual future endeavors at this point, because it has not gone well so far. But I guess the hard ones are the hard ones, John.
This is true, and I got to laugh at this. I just look at Facebook and thoughts and prayers out to anybody and everybody who's been affected by Hurricane Matthew, Haiti, Cuba. Just saw that 260 people died in Haiti, which is absolutely tragic to hear. But in Fort Myers, on Fort Myers Beach in Florida. So on the other coast where they're, maybe like 20, 30 mile per hour gusts is like the worst they're going to get, unless the storm does wrap around like they're forecasting. The sign on the outside of the Lanikai Resort and cheap plug in Fort Myers Beach, we are open until the letters fly off this sign.
Wow.
So, and it's actually a pretty nice place. They got a nice beachfront. Good. What's the word I want to use? Not like banquet thing, but like where the bands play. I'm having a brain fart. You get where I'm getting. So, yeah. Anybody in Florida, you guys want to go to a nice resort, Lanikai Resort, Fort Myers Beach?
Absolutely. If they'd like to send us some, comp pass, we'd be happy to go down and report in depth.
Absolutely. I would love to go back to Lanikai. Sorry. Had to try to get my dreams out there. Somebody wants to pay for it. So Goldberg. God, does this saga keep continuing? According to Jim Ross, if I remember this right, Jim Ross is apparently, and Mark's gonna be happy, but Mike's going to hate me. According to Jim Ross, Bill Goldberg is evidently going to be competing inside of a WWE ring, apparently at Survivor Series. Goldberg is going out of his way to try to contradict the reports and said basically like, oh, this isn't happening. But I severely doubt a guy like Jim Ross would be talking about it and mentioning that if it wasn't, if nothing else, heavily in the pipeline and being discussed internally in WWE. So what are your thoughts on a possible Bill Goldberg match? Yes, Goldberg, Lesnar 2.
Well, I mean, a couple things. First of all, I would say that I did have a chance to watch Goldberg on SportsCenter today, which they heavily plugged on WWE programming this week, which is the first sign that, something's going on, right, is when they start telling you. And I have to say, to your point, it was kind of underwhelming if it was meant to be a promo. He did call out Lesnar in the fact that he again said that if he wrestled another match, it would be against Brock Lesnar, which, that's fine. But he really went out of his way to kind of, say, oh, I don't know if I could do it, and I'm older now and all this. So then Heyman sent out a tweet that was much more effective. No surprise there. It really kind of ripped Goldberg and said, look, it's not the video game. It's real life here. So it does seem, to JR's point, that the signals are pointing that match is going to happen. Now, whether or not it happens in Survivor Series, I think is a different question, because to be honest with you, and I know you will be in attendance, and I would hope that for you, because it's definitely a match that would get a ton of people talking. But I'm not convinced it's going to happen at Survivor Series, only because it feels to me like they would save that for Royal Rumble or for probably WrestleMania, unless they already know who Lesnar is going to fight at WrestleMania, which they very well may. On top of all of that, I would just say to you, and I promise I'm not saying this as sour grapes, I'm not really that excited about seeing Goldberg wrestle again. I think he was marginal anyway. WCW did a great job presenting him, but I was never a big fan. And to your point, that match with Brock the first time around was not very good. Not necessarily.
That's being generous.
There was a lot of behind. Yeah, well, it is. It is being generous, and it wasn't. Again, it's not a shot at them, because there was a lot of other stuff going on at that. As I'm sure people that follow the business know, there was plenty going on in that decision and how that match ended. That really was more about the contract status of those guys than it was about a result in the ring. So as much as I would like the idea of them being able to set the record straight, the Sting thing didn't end very well when he kind of came back similarly, tied into the video game. Again, not his fault. It's just sometimes I think you need to strike while the iron is hot with this stuff. And so I can't say that I'm sitting around going, boy, I hope I can watch Goldberg wrestle again. If it was Kurt Angle, if it was, the Hardys, if it was somebody like that, I would be really, really on board. So I think it's a big moment for them if it happens. Like I said, I think being there, as you guys will both be, I'm not one to say it doesn't add to the sexiness, if you want to say, of the card, but I'm not really that excited about the prospect, because frankly, I just don't think the match itself is going to be, better than the sum of its parts.
That'd be a lot of Lesnar carrying a match, which he really hasn't shown the ability to do since he's come back to WWE. His matches, I mean, he had matches. Who have his feuds been with? Cena, Triple H,
yep.
Ambrose, The Undertaker. Undertaker, I will take that back, because he had to carry The Undertaker. I'll take that back. Not to say that The Undertaker couldn't hold up his own, because he could. That was one of Taker's best little runs that he's had in quite some time. God, who else? Orton, Rollins. So he's had a few good matches and a lot of and it's more, but all the matches are thrown to the wayside. That opinion is because it's Brock Lesnar. You know, he's still the blockbuster box office megastar for the WWE. So you don't remember the you remember it's Brock Lesnar.
Well, 100%. Lesnar is a draw for WWE. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
He's a draw, but he's not somebody who can carry a match, and that's exactly what he'd have to do with Goldberg.
Yep. Well, they'd have to keep it short, obviously.
Short and no disqualification, which means a lot of violence.
Absolutely.
Hopefully.
And listen, I think if they present it right, it's going to be more about the presentation than the result, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because they're very good at presenting, stuff at various times. But the other concern I would have is, again, the availability. I mean, Lesnar isn't on TV every week, so they're going to be relying on Heyman to kind of drive it, which is fine. So we'll see. I mean, listen, it's definitely a big deal. It's one of the few cards that WWE kind of has left in their sleeve as far as dream matches go, with names of the past, shall we say, until, like I said, Kurt Angle eventually makes his comeback, which I think people would be much more excited for. Goldberg is not as much of a big figure in WWE history as he certainly is in WCW history. So I'm not convinced that there's legions of people going, oh boy, I can't wait to see Goldberg wrestle Lesnar. But from a physical standpoint, like watching those two guys stare each other down, that's a pretty cool moment. I can't argue that.
I wasn't laughing if you heard me snickering a minute ago at what you were saying. It was what I realized. Goldberg is going to win against Brock Lesnar. And how excited are you, say, the Royal Rumble that just happens to be in a 70,000 person arena in the Alamo Dome? How excited are you for Goldberg's WWE Universal Championship match against Roman Reigns? Because that's
you're just trying to get me ill.
But is that outside of the realm of possibility? No.
Absolutely not. Of course not.
They're gonna play the Kevin Owens card until, God, I don't know. Let's see, Hell in a Cell. Then you got Survivor Series. I could see Reigns winning at Roadblock, which is or whatever pay-per-view name they go with for December in Pittsburgh. The Raw pay-per-view. Reigns somehow getting into the he'll lose the U.S. title. I say he loses the U.S. title at Hell in a Cell.
Do you?
He is going to lose the U.S. title because all the talk about the Shield and Survivor Series. They're not gonna have. I doubt they're gonna have a belt on Reigns in the Shield match.
Right.
I mean, I would think you would take it off of him and then get somebody else to challenge. I mean, Owens is probably looking like he's going to be in that match. So, I mean, you get the U.S. title. I mean, you could have the belt on Owens. So it's going to make it more legitimate threat. You could do Rusev and Sammy for the U.S. title.
You could.
But
you could. I mean, the Owens thing still has some mileage because of the whole, as you've already, and you and I, of course, are of one mind on this, the whole authority Triple H angle has not even come
beat me to it.
Yet.
You beat me to it. We've got the fucking payoff to Roman Reigns and Triple H at WrestleMania for the second fucking year in a row.
Well, listen.
I'm sorry. I should really hide my excitement about that. That's all I was going to say.
Well, it's either going to be that or it's going to be Rollins Triple H. I mean, there's no doubt.
I will be forever thankful to the WWE if we don't have to sit through Reigns Triple H 2 years in a row.
Well, I don't know if we talked about this before, John, but I really think that, and I know at this point it's fallen on deaf ears with WWE, but I'm going to tell you right now, and I'll just throw this out there, and the listeners can let me know how they feel about it. But if you want a Roman Reigns money, I mean, because the guy can wrestle, that's never been an argument. he's okay on the microphone. He's not great, but to be honest, I don't know that a lot of guys in that company are great on the microphone that get a push. You don't have to be. But to me, the ultimate way that they play this is you get The Rock to come back, right? You get The Rock to help Roman Reigns achieve his win. And then you have Reigns spear The Rock, okay? And in that moment, he is nuclear heat forever. And that is what they're missing. It's like Joey Styles said before he got fired. Her mom that want to date him, and the kids that that they want him to be the next John Cena. They're going to be disappointed, okay? But everybody else is now going to be free to boo Roman, and Roman's going to be free to not look constipated. Because that, to me, is the most frustrating thing. Is when they boo him, you can tell that he wants to be like F you, which would be the normal reaction. And instead he just kind of does that smile and he's like, oh, like at least John Cena says, oh, some of the crowd hates me tonight. They don't even let Roman do that because they're so concerned about the way he looks. So I realize that, it's different, but I'm telling you, if it was me, that's 100% what I would do. It is so smart. It's so obvious because they have that family connection. And if he spears The Rock, his ticket is made for the rest of his career. You can get a huge heel run, and then eventually, if you're desperate to turn him face, you can do that down the road. But
the only other way you get money is you have Reigns turn on the Shield at Survivor Series.
Well, I agree with you on that. I just think the difference with the family piece and how beloved The Rock is, it's like taking out Austin or Shawn Michaels. I mean, you're talking about a guy who everybody that's a fan in WWE is like, oh, I love The Rock. And the Shield, listen, I agree with you. You can't make that happen. I would totally settle for that because I think that is very smart. But I don't know what they're doing. I think they're like on the fence with all three of those guys. Ambrose is acting like a heel more and more. So I could envision this weekend something going on there where Ambrose kind of, because he's really been on the fence, and clearly, John Cena is not turning heel. So you wonder about that a little bit as they set up. I would assume that you probably agree with me that AJ Styles is not going to be losing the belt.
I don't think so.
So he's probably setting up for a feud with Orton, you would guess, right? That would make the most sense. So they're and then Rollins, same thing. I mean, they finally this week on Raw. This was one of the other things I did like about Raw this week. Rollins did a sit down with Michael Cole and actually acted like a face. Imagine that. He came out and said, hey, here's why I did what I did. Here's why I'm upset with Kevin Owens. That, you were kind of like, okay, I guess I can cheer for this guy now.
But God forbid McMahon lets him go out there to be a babyface. His fucking philosophy that he has, there's no such things as good guys and bad guys. There's just guys. Right. No. And that's why Kofi Kingston and Wade Barrett and Dolph Ziggler and Cody Rhodes and Damian Sandow are all probably going to end up in TNA or whatever company Billy Corgan makes it. Well, maybe not Kofi, but so
Smashing Pumpkins Federation.
The World Smashing Pumpkin. No. Let's see. Try to think about this for a second. The Smashing Wrestling Federation.
Sounds very British.
Smashing. The World Pumpkin Championship.
That's great for Halloween. It's perfect.
But let's switch gears here before we get Evan Ginzburg on in a few minutes. Let's run down No Mercy and give our thoughts. Jack Swagger versus Baron Corbin. God, have they screwed up anybody worse than Jack Swagger? He had actually a chance for momentum, and they've.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Corbin because WWE.
Boy, it's hard to argue with that because everything would point to Swagger, but I'm going to agree with you. I think Corbin wins because of that controversial thing with SmackDown where he didn't tap, and then they probably continue the feud for another 20 weeks till we all want to, end it.
He doesn't mean the feud.
No.
Kurt Hawkins versus To Be Denounced. I'm going to kind of pick To Be Denounced. I like that wrestler. No, actually, there's some talk that Kurt Hawkins' debut could be a return for a little bit of a bigger star. Kind of similar. I haven't heard any names. That's just what Wayne told me that he's heard that could be used as a vehicle for somebody else to come back. Maybe I'm going to hit the nail on the head here. Maybe not. The last one they did that with was MVP. His first, it wasn't on pay-per-view. His first SmackDown match was against the returning Chris Benoit. So, stranger things have happened.
Well, I'm going to say I think it'll be Apollo Crews. Well, that Smart Money seems to be Apollo Crews. If it's Apollo Crews, I don't think that Hawkins is going to win. But
sure he will.
If it was, yeah, he might. But since I'm taking Corbin, I think that could happen. So maybe because that makes total sense, right? We're pushing up the debut for this guy, and then he loses, on the pre-show of this thing to Apollo Crews. But
no, he's not. He's on the main card.
Oh, that's actually
Hawkins is on the main card. Swagger and Corbin are the pre-show.
I don't even know what to say. Corbin is like Mr. Pre-show. So
Does he get?
Me, though, if I was booking it, Zack Ryder is absolutely who I would put him 1-on-1 with, and that way you can have him win. And Kurt Zamora will hate me some more.
He'll hate you some more. Sorry, I had to.
He'll hate. Yeah.
I had to. Can Mojo Rawley be the special guest referee?
Only if he does that atrocious dance.
And then we can have Rosa Mendez and Emma be like the guest enforcers because those were the real life girl and the first girl he had like at the arm candy. Going back.
Now it sounded like you know what, John? I think you may have hit on something because now it's starting to sound like a total Divas storyline, and Vince loves it.
There we go. Speaking of Total Bellas, Nikki Bella versus Carmina.
I'm going to go with Nikki because, there's just no way.
This one excites me. Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt, finally one-on-one. I'm going to say Bray. He needs to win.
Yep. Well, you know what?
But on the other end, go ahead.
So does Randy.
Especially if they're going to put him in a feud with AJ, they got to give him some credibility coming off that loss to Brock.
And that's exactly what I think happened because Wyatt, they just don't care. It's obvious they don't care, so just have them lose again. Why not?
Speaking of losing again, Ziggler putting his career on the line. Look at these segues I got tonight. Ziggler versus The Miz, career versus title. I could honestly care less. I like Miz more than Ziggler at this point. Ziggler has done nothing for me for like the last 2 years. Since the Authority Survivor Series match, he hasn't done that. Yeah, whatever.
Are you going Miz?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Miz.
I am too. Yeah, I think it's normal swerve routine.
Yeah.
So, Miz.
I think 2017, bold prediction. I think 2017 is going to be the year of the return of Miz to the mid card, to the main event, and I think we could see a WWE World Title run, or if they do an annual draft, a Universal Title. I think he's going to get a main event title run next year. It'd be interesting to see, huh? You know what I'd be interested to see, because WWE, if they did indeed buy the tape library, most likely they bought the likeness of TNA Wrestling and probably Impact Wrestling, I'm assuming. You know what would be interesting to see, though, since the company is going to be rebranded? WWE do their version of Option C. You trade your belt in for a shot at the world champion.
Well, it would be interesting, but if I was WWE, I would not be borrowing any of TNA's creative.
No, but that's one of the few things that TNA did that I liked. Where, you had a good run for, like, Austin Aries had a good run as world champion, and he's the one who invented Option C.
Yep.
Heath Slater and Rhino against the Usos. I think we both agree Heath Slater and Rhino. I think originally they wanted to put the belts on the Usos, but I think there's too much money with them trying to over milk and oversaturate the Heath Slater character. Shocker. Becky Lynch versus Alexa Bliss for the women's title. I say Alexa Bliss wins the SmackDown women's title because there's more money. There's more money in a babyface chasing than a heel chasing.
Yeah, I see your point. I think if that's going to happen, it actually would be the Usos winning, which I could seem too soon for either of them to lose their belts. But I think Becky retains. Alexa's done a good job. It doesn't mean that she's out of it because she loses. Because remember, John, you lose, they just wrestle another 17 times.
This is true.
So I think Lynch wins, but I do get your point.
And lastly, Dean Ambrose versus the 15-time world champion John Cena versus AJ Styles for the WWE Championship. I say AJ because this is SmackDown's last stop until Survivor Series, and same argument I had about Reigns before. They're not going to put a belt on Dean. In that they're not going to put both world champions in that Shield match if they do it, and Cena's not going to win it right now. They've done way too much teasing of it.
Well, also, according to, I guess, who you talk to, I mean, we know Cena is due to go film, his show.
Mm-hmm.
And my understanding is that Ambrose might be taking some time off. Have you heard that?
I have not, but that makes sense why they'd put Randy in the main event.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, it's kind of reading the tea leaves a little bit. I think, again, too soon for AJ to lose that belt anyway, even if that wasn't going on. You're definitely right on with the Cena thing. They're hitting you over the head with it, which means, hello, it's not going to happen.
Exactly.
And Ambrose, it wasn't really a successful run anyway. Again,
No.
not through his fault. Just I think.
Yeah, I'm not.
That match would be great, but I think the outcome is very evident.
Yeah, I like Ambrose as much as the next person, but I'm not exactly first in line to want to go see another Ambrose world title run at the moment.
And here's the thing, John. He doesn't need it, and that's
He doesn't.
a testimony to him. His character doesn't need a belt.
No, he's like Austin. In that sense that Austin did, not to say that he's the next Stone Cold, but I say he's like Austin because he doesn't need a belt. Austin was a 7-time world champion, and you wouldn't know it looking at his career. I mean, 3 or 4 reigns came within like 6 months, and that was around WrestleMania. No, I'll say in like the first year and a half of the Austin McMahon feud, he won the belt like 3 or 4 times. I think.
Yeah, and he won the Royal Rumble, and he won, obviously early he won King of the Ring. So they gave him all the big spots that they always do when they're trying to get somebody over, and that's fine. But you're absolutely right. Like, he didn't need the belt, and I think you have to celebrate that. That's in the nature of Ambrose. He's supposed to be counterculture, and he's supposed to not really give a crap. And I think, when they try to do this thing where he's the main face of the company, it just doesn't really work. It feels off. Unfortunately, just like I felt about the Rollins-Owens match, I think as good as the match is going to be, it does get knocked down a couple matches for me because I just think it's too obvious what's going to happen. I would like a little more mystery for a triple threat match. And enough already with that, by the way. Enough of the triple threat matches, please.
Yeah, some fatal 4-ways would be nice.
Absolutely. But, let's face it. Some iteration of these guys have been wrestling each other. And again, I guess that's partially due to the brand split. But, good Lord. It's like all these triple threat matches. We get it already, okay? Like, just build a feud between 2 guys. It's okay.
Absolutely. So, I do want to celebrate something else, though. I want to celebrate that for the first time in about a month, we are joined by one of the most intelligent minds to ever breathe and live in New York City and Long Island. A man who is smarter beyond my comprehension. A man who is wiser than Nostradamus. I tried there. and a man who is entertaining, whose entertainment knows no bounds, that you guys can see each and every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, MadhouseTV.com, streaming live 24/7, archived 24/7. The one, the only, the incomparable Evan Ginzburg.
Now I'm going to disappoint all of your listeners. Thank you.
You know, you're not going to disappoint them. I've literally spent the last half hour shitting on WWE.
Oh, so I don't have to bother this week. Thank you. You saved me the time and energy.
Oh, it hasn't taken any energy at all. They've deserved it. They've deserved it. They've warranted it. And I've had a blast doing it. I see why you do it every week.
Ironically, I may go and buy my first WWE ticket in, I would say, 15 years because NXT is running a house show in New York and Nakamura is headlining, and I assume he's headlining against Samoa Joe. I could be wrong, but and that is something I would pay to see. So, what can I say?
So, basically, what you're telling us is for the first time, as it been known as the WWE, Evan Ginzburg is buying a ticket for a WWE show.
I said I'm considering. I'm most likely, you know. But I have turned down many a comp, many a press ticket, etc. So on to Raw, you know, at MSG, because it was just too painful growing up on Billy Graham and Bruno and Pedro and Backlund, and you know, I just couldn't bear the thought of going to WWE. And then finally, a buddy of mine, he hands me two $75 tickets one year. He couldn't go, and I'm watching Dolph Ziggler and Cena in a cage, and amazingly, Ziggler, who does every move in the book and is a tremendous athlete, had zero heat whatsoever in a steel cage match. He looked just like a likable guy bouncing around, and by the next morning, I forgot about the entire show and haven't been back since. So,
Don't feel bad. Vince McMahon forgets about the entire show while he's producing it.
I think Vince forgot about Dolph Ziggler also, but that's another story. But,
That's great.
I'm gonna save my venom this week for TNA because I always tell folks that TNA squandered one of the greatest talent rosters in history. If you think about the guys who left TNA in recent years, they could have started a great promotion on their own. Guys like AJ Styles, obviously, Bobby Roode, Low-Key, Homicide, Hernandez, etc., so on. These are some tremendous athletes, and I've always said that TNA never had the courage of their convictions. They should have pushed the X Division to the hilt instead of grabbing desperately every WWE cast-off they could find and doing bad comedy, and ultimately being a second-rate WWE instead of a great X Division featured promotion, which is what could have made them stand out. What TNA should have been was what the WWE Cruiserweight Classic just was. They squandered that opportunity, and that's why they are where they are today. And it's a shame, but it's nobody's fault but their own.
You know what I just thought about? It's kind of eerily similar. 6 years from the day, well, not to the day, but 6 years ago, Impact Wrestling tried to challenge the WWE with the Monday Night Raw and head-to-head, and it was a colossal mistake. 6 years after WCW tried to do it, WCW was gone.
I mean, 7 nights in a week, and why go? Why put your ego and ahead of common sense? I mean, put on the best show you possibly can on a different night, and I'll take it a step further. I went to 2 of their house shows in New York, and I'm sitting there, and
They had guys like Kurt Angle and Austin Aries, among the greatest wrestlers in the world, among the greatest wrestlers ever in a ring. And these guys are wrestling 8 minutes, and next thing you know, they have a 45-minute intermission, and they're hawking Earl Hebner's merchandise. And, I'm like, what is going on here? Am I insane? There's a 45-minute intermission, and they're rushing through the matches like they're meaningless because they're so desperate to make a few bucks, or at least that's the impression that they gave. And very anticlimactic. The one good match I remember live was Sting and Bubba Ray Dudley, and they were, but nothing that I'm going to remember 40 years from now.
Yeah, the TNA came up this way once, and it was it was the New York State Fair, but I wouldn't pay the tickets because it was at the old not Chevy Court, the I can't think of the actual name of it, but they had like the second concert stage, or like an area where they would the grandstand, where they would have a lot of the paid acts, and they had TNA there, and I just couldn't. If it was free, I would have went. But
I paid a whopping $20. I didn't think it was worth it. It's not even a matter of money. It's just you have a great talent roster, and the priority was the intermission. It made no sense to me. I guess they saw it wasn't a great house, and they went through the motions. But you lose people like that. What's to motivate you to come back?
I wish I could tell you, but so
their own worst enemy. They continue to be their own worst enemy, and I wish them nothing but the best. I think competition's a healthy thing. I think having more places for wrestlers to work and get exposure, especially TV exposure, is important. Basically, it's the equivalent of Raw or SmackDown. You have several hours of wrestling, and maybe 20 or 30 minutes is worth actually seeing. And in that time, you could have, been using your time more constructively. And I really, it's a shame. They were kind of running in place for years. It was like they were in quicksand. They weren't getting from, point A to point B. And now it's WWE content, or whatever the case may be. Or about to be.
So I don't mean to poke fun at this, but you have a storied history in various forms of media over the last 25 years or so, if I'm not mistaken, Evan.
Thank you.
Now, you'd have to be living under a rock not to know about Hurricane Matthew going on.
Right.
We opened the show talking about this because Mike and I were laughing at just like the sheer ridiculousness of how this news anchor from Fox News handled the hurricane. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I have no grounds, no legs to stand on, no grounds or anything to have this opinion, but I'm pretty sure with a hurricane that the National Weather Service is forecasting severe loss of life, you're not supposed to warn people like this.
Daytona Beach, all the way up to Jacksonville. This moves 20 miles to the west, and you and everyone you know are dead.
Were you able to hear that?
Something about everyone you know being dead? I didn't quite hear it.
Hold on 1 second.
Daytona Beach, all the way up to Jacksonville. This moves 20 miles to the west, and you and everyone you know are dead. All of you.
Okay. If that happens, everyone you know are dead.
There's more.
That is a little melodramatic, I would say. There are earthquakes, and not everyone is dead. Look. Media is always going to hype a story because that equals ratings, and in the long run, if you do scare people into protecting themselves, it's probably for the best. Worst case scenario, they had a weekend in the house, but I personally wouldn't make a comment like that.
Oh, it gets better, I believe.
I would hope that by next Thursday you're not dead. I would hope.
That makes two of us. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a show.
That's right.
You can't survive it. It's not possible unless you're very, very lucky. And your
I
kids
always
die
like the one idiot that's out in the storm. You know, you see everything blowing around them. And there's always a video of that guy.
I didn't even notice this. Oh, go ahead.
I'm also curious. Like, if you're watching TV and he says that, and you're like, "Oh, you mean if I stay here in this Category 4 hurricane, I could die? I can't believe it. Let me get my car and get the hell out of here. I've only been told to evacuate. I've seen National Guard vans pull past my house. But thank goodness this news anchor is here to tell me that I could die if I stay in this hurricane." Like, I'm going to just, I shouldn't say to be zero people, because I'm sure there's one or two crazies everywhere. But, like, you know, again, Savin's point, like, don't be so full of yourself from the media that you're like, "Oh, we're doing this to help people." Like, you're sensationalizing what does not require sensationalization. That's even a word.
Over here in New York, my primary concern is I have tickets for an outdoor concert Saturday with Earth, Wind, and Fire and Chic and Bette Midler, and I'm just hoping it doesn't get rained on. That's my primary concern. It's a whole different issue here in New York. Concert getting rained on.
Listen, I'm up by Syracuse, New York. My only concern is that it's getting colder on Sunday and we don't get snow.
Wow, snow in October.
Oh, that happens all the time.
It is kind of ironic that Earth, Wind, and Fire are playing, though.
That's right. Earth, Wind, and Fire, and a lot of water, it sounds like. This might not be.
Yeah.
The Mother Nature's mad at the element that was left out.
I once saw Earth, Wind, and Fire in the pouring rain in an outdoor show in Brooklyn, and it was so great nobody left. And all of you listeners are going, what does any of this have to do with wrestling? when I was doing my radio show for years, they'd always go, "What's that have to do with wrestling?" You know, I don't always go on tangents, but anyway.
Basically, long story short, I'll peel the curtain back. This is what happens when you run through all of your topics. Okay.
They had Harley race against Billy Graham in Florida, title versus title. Billy Graham was the WWF champ at the time, and it was pouring rain. And Johnny Valiant, the Valiant brothers, wrestled Steve Kern and Mike Graham, and he told me it was so bad in the ring that it was slippery and wet, and that they were just in danger of doing basically anything except punching and kicking because it was so wet and slippery. They were scared they'd cripple themselves. So, you know, they have had outdoor wrestling shows in severe rain. That has happened, but I don't think in a hurricane. I never heard a story like that.
Well, the WWE gambles every time they go to Florida, and there has to be an outdoor show. As WrestleMania this year.
Florida. Yeah, that show was in Florida, I believe 1977 or 8, yeah.
On an unrelated note, what time is the concert you're going to?
From 5 to 10.
A chance of rain, a 51% chance of rain at 7 and 8 o'clock, otherwise you're in the clear. Well, 43%. 47, 51, 51, 47% chance of precipitation.
Worst case scenario, I get wet. Okay.
I figured So there you go, folks. The weather report here on Main Event Madness. You get news, you get weather, we laugh at the news. Oh, and then we talk a little bit of wrestling.
We mock WWE and TNA and then go to the weather report. That's what we do here on Main Event Madness.
Listen, we mock WWE when WWE deserves it. Just like I said earlier.
I know something. I've been watching wrestling since 1972. I've been attending since 1974. And WWE today has one of the greatest talent bases in the history of this industry, if you include NXT. The only promotion I think had a better talent base was the NWA of the 80s, when you had the Four Horsemen, Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express, the Russians, and you had guys like Billy Graham and Jimmy Valiant mid-card because they had so much talent. And Billy Graham and Jimmy Valiant were main event guys anywhere they went. So I think that was the greatest promotion of all time and the greatest shows of all time. But WWE today, the talent base is unbelievable if you include NXT. And it's a shame that their idea of TV is to do some kind of, bad comedy, whatever Raw is. When you saw that Cruiserweight Classic and you said, wow, this is as good as anything out there today, it was almost schizophrenic that the same company, put out both products. You couldn't imagine that was made by the same.
I will say one thing. The rumor going through the grapevine is the Monday Night Raw after Survivor Series, there will be a main roster debut for one Samoa Joe.
Okay, why not?
So if you want to be able to go see Samoa Joe in NXT, just to go to that NXT show.
Well, the bigger question will be, what do they do with him once he gets there? Because I think that's the point. Like, that's been the real fallacy of the brand split is, like he's saying, the roster is so deep that you can support 2 or 3 shows with the amount of talent they have, but you do have to utilize it. You can't just say, oh, this guy's up from NXT. Like, look at Bayley. I mean, Bayley was huge in NXT, and now she's already been forgotten about, basically, on the main roster. They're struggling to find something to do with her. She's super over with a large portion of the crowd. She gets you, girls. Of course, you always want women to watch wrestling. This is a great buy-in for them. And it's just another example of where the talent being deep is great, but you have to utilize it. You can't just let them not show up, not like we talked about Neville not being even on the show. They can't work with the people they already have, and then they're going to continue to add these names, and it only matters if they do something relevant with them.
But you want to know something? In 3 hours, instead of having endless bad skits, comedy that isn't funny, they could utilize more of the talent. It's a choice. You open with Raw, and they haven't locked up until the 18 or 20 minute mark because they're yabbering endlessly. Stephanie McMahon and Mick Foley, who I actually like, and
this is sounding like my voice coming out, or Evan's voice coming out of me, because I literally said the exact same thing earlier.
Yeah, it's in the course of 3 hours, like I said, maybe there's 30 minutes of good wrestling. I mean, the TiVo was created for Monday Night Raw.
Absolutely,
the inventor had it in mind. It's a shame because you got all these great wrestlers, and where are they? All of a sudden, you'll see a good match, and it's 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes, and they're on to the next bad bit with the stilted dialogue and the robotic reading of the dialogue, and just let them wrestle. Very simple. Just let them wrestle.
Well, John, I was going to tell you, I was waiting for Evan to come on because I thought of him this week and it's a small stylistic change, but I think he'll appreciate it. When Raw started this week, and maybe they did it last week, I don't know, but I noticed that they didn't do that really lame, here's what you missed last week on Raw that they were doing for like the first 10 weeks. And it occurred to me, as Evan is always saying, there's really no need to show us what happened last week on Raw because it's going to happen again this week. So we don't really need an update. It's going to be the same exact stuff that we saw before.
Plus, you have like 55.
The same people are watching. We saw it last week anyway.
Right.
And they're just going to remind us 55 times throughout the show what happened anyway. But
yeah, what happened like 10 minutes ago. Do you remember, earlier when Roman Reigns and Rusev yelled at each other? Let's show you that again. In case you forgot.
Well, let's let them wrestle endlessly over and over and over again. You have all these talented people, and they give you the same matches over and over and over again. I mean, I'm bored by Cesaro, and I think the guy's great. How many times is he going to wrestle Sheamus? It's enough. Thank you.
So let's talk about something that is entertaining, and that is Legends TV that airs at MadhouseTV.com every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. Who do you got this week?
Oh, you'll be impressed by this. My co-host is Angel Orsini from ECW, and I have some great musicians and film reviews and some indie wrestlers. It's the usual hodgepodge. But Angel Orsini's coming on for the third time. She's tremendous, very sharp, entertaining, funny. She's my special co-host this week for UECW. It's at madhousetv.com and then archived on all social media, YouTube, etc., so on, immediately after the show. So check it out. Check out our archives. We have tons of indie wrestlers, and we kind of do what we're doing here. We talk about wrestling, and I'll tell you, the New York indie scene's exploding. I mean, we had 9 shows in one weekend the other weekend. I went to see Pentagon against Phoenix, Pentagon Jr. in Phoenix. It was tremendous, absolutely tremendous. And,
Must be nice. We haven't had wrestling up here in Central New York since Northeast Wrestling came up here last November.
9 shows in one weekend. It's like it's a buyer's market, for 15, 20 bucks. You go 15, 20 minutes from your house, and you got name guys on the shows, and it's kind of like a real renaissance for independent wrestling. And then 6 months or a year later, there they are. They're in WWE. In fact, Anthony Nese has been headlining a lot of these indies because he lives here. And,
should try to get him on the show.
That's great. And yeah, we'll get some legends on the show. Some of them get right here on Main Event Madness. We'll have John coordinated, assuming he survives the storm, because the guy on Fox said everybody's going to die. So assuming John survives, we're going to have some big interviews coming up.
Well, the good thing is I'm outside of Florida. So
your chances are even better then.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, I'm going to tease this, and I'm going to give Mike some homework for next week's show, and I'll let Mark know. If you could move around 5 names from Raw and 5 names from SmackDown and switch shows, put them in NXT, rearrange them however you want, who would you move and why?
I would have Nakamura on SmackDown just so he could wrestle AJ Styles. It was one of the greatest matches I've ever seen. Right there. Nakamura should not be in NXT. This guy should be on Raw or SmackDown. And since AJ's on SmackDown, I would have Nakamura right there. And beyond that, it's all out. I think Raw is a lot deeper in talent. SmackDown, they have a lot of these B-level tag teams, and it's just not on the same level as Raw talent-wise. So I would try to get some of the NXT guys like Samoa Joe, like Rude, or Austin Aries into SmackDown just to strengthen it because it's weak.
Definitely. Tune in next week for that. Main Event Madness Radio next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern right here, Wrestling-News, blogtalkradio.com/Main Event Madness. For Mark, for Mike, Evan, I'm John, at John MEM Radio, at the Mark Madison, at Darman Rockwell, and at Evan_Ginzburg. Brandon Lasher, who's not on with us tonight, at WWE BNRL. And until next time, guys, be good, be safe, and Lord willing, you guys will be with us next Thursday. Anybody impacted by Hurricane Matthew, thoughts and prayers out to you guys. So until next time, guys, see ya.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight. If you missed a part or all of tonight's show, no problem. We're available on iTunes and also on demand anytime at ProWrestling.biz, Wrestling-News.net, and here at blogtalkradio.com/Main Event Madness. We are every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, and we hope you can join us. We're Main Event Madness. Madness Unleashed. Have a good one, everybody. So long.
Welcome to Staples.
Staples guy, I've resolved to save my office money in 2017.
Well, during Staples' January printing event, you save big when you buy one HP ink and get the second 40% off.
Oh, that kind of savings will impress the boss. Maybe this year he'll stop calling me new guy Nick.
Well, there are worse nicknames.
I've worked there 6 years, and my name's Doug.
Resolve to save during Staples' January printing event. Buy one HP ink and get the second 40% off. Staples, make more happen.
Ends 1/14/17. See store staples.com for details. Restrictions may apply.
Welcome to Staples.
Staples guy, I've resolved to save my office money in 2017.
Well, during Staples' January printing event, you save big when you buy one HP ink and get the second 40% off.
Oh, that kind of savings will impress the boss. Maybe this year he'll stop calling me new guy Nick.
Well, there are worse nicknames.
I've worked there 6 years, and my name's Doug.
Resolve to save during Staples' January printing event. Buy one HP ink and get the second 40% off. Staples, make more happen.
Ends 1/14/17. See store staples.com for details. Restrictions may apply.